Alright, time for part 1 of the payoff to this whole section. The implications of the central limit theorem. The central limit theorem has these 4 important implications. Number 1, if you have data on a population, specifically its mean and standard deviation, then you can make inferences about any sufficiently large sample from that population. And this is the example that we just saw with the Airbnb prices. We have the population mean and standard deviation, so we can use them to build the sampling distribution of the mean, and then just use all of the normal distribution theory that we've learned to make inferences about any sample that we could potentially draw from that population. Number 2, if you have data on a population and a sufficiently large sample, then you can infer whether the sample belongs to that population. And this is very similar. You use the population data to build the sampling distribution, and then you see where the sample data lies along that distribution. And if the sample mean is improbably higher or lower than the population mean, well then chances are that sample is not from that population. Number 3, if you only have data on a sufficiently large sample, which is typically the case, you can still make inferences about the population from which that sample was drawn. So even if you don't have the data for the population, you know that if you take a large sample, then its mean will belong to a sampling distribution that is normally distributed around the population mean. So you can actually estimate it surprisingly accurately. And finally, number 4, if you have data on 2 sufficiently large samples, then you can infer whether they belong to the same population. In other words, if their population means are likely the same. And all of this is the basis for inferential statistics, which let you come to reasonable conclusions about an unknown population from a sample. And it's what we'll focus on for the rest of the course. So don't worry if these implications haven't fully stuck yet. As we apply them, then you'll start to realize how all of this ties together.